Someone You Should Know, a program about people you know and even more that you don't. Hosted by Stuart Sax, veteran, husband, father, and grandfather. Now, here's your host, Stuart Sax.
Well, hello. I welcome you again to another episode of Someone You Should Know. I'm very, very glad that you've taken the time, whether it's when we launch the show, live, or you pick it up at your convenience and just want to sit back and relax and have a cold drink or something to eat and watch the show. Thank you very, very much for joining us. I very much appreciate it. And I appreciate all of the comments that we get about our programs. So if you enjoy it, please let us know. And if you have ideas for, people to be on the show, send those to us also. And also, I want you to make sure you connect with Christine Dean, who is the sponsor of this show and also the producer of this show. Why? Because Christine knows everything there is to know about social media, how you can market your own website, if you want to expand your website, if you want to do a podcast like we're doing here, or you just need to connect with people to interact, to make your presence on social media at the next level. Christine Dean knows everything there is. That's why she's called the Diva. And that's why she is the producer and sponsor of this show, because I rely on her. You wouldn't even see this face if it wasn't for her. So if you want to have a free consultation, reach out to Christine Dean, affectionately known as thenetworkingdiva.com. Reach out. Thank you, Christine, for all you do. Well, you know that from time to time, I am always fascinated with stories of people who have just said, I'm going to work hard and make something of myself. And that's exactly who my guest is today, because he is someone who accepted the opportunity to start on the bottom rung of the ladder and slowly climb to the top. So I welcome to the show Terry Stanley. I appreciate you very much being with us, Terry, and sharing this story with us. You are an inspiration, my friend, for what you have accomplished. And I'll be throwing a few ideas and questions at you, but I want to start off by you telling the people that are watching and listening to this show, who is Terry Stanley? Where did you grow up? What some of the background of you as you were growing up and maybe going away for your education? Who is Terry Stanley all about?
So thanks so much, Stuart, for having me on your show, and welcome all the listeners. So I grew up in North Carolina. I was born in the Appalachian Mountains in Elkin, North Carolina, small town. And my story is that I started bagging groceries like many folks in high school at the age of 15 before I even got my driver's license. And short of a stint in the Air Force, also a veteran, I spent the rest of my career, over 51 years, in the grocery industry, and most recently retired as a CEO of a grocery company in Alabama.
That's an interesting beginning story, because the one thing that really popped out in my head was you said you started working before you could drive. So obviously this store that you went to bag groceries at must have been in your neighborhood.
It was actually, I was mowing a yard for a neighbor that was a vice president of a local grocery company, which is a very large company today. It was a Food Lion out of the Southeast. And I was mowing his yard, and he came outside, and I told him I was ready to go to work and I want to work in a grocery store, and he put me to work.
So you were in the right place at the right time, because you were cutting grass and he needed another bagger, and you said, I'm your man.
That's exactly right. I said, I'm the guy.
All right, so you get this opportunity at 15 years old. Obviously, you're still in school, and you're going to be working part time, and So after a few years, let's say when you got to graduate high school or something, is that at that point you said, I really like the grocery business, and I want to keep climbing up the ladder and doing things in the grocery field?
No, actually, Stuart, coming out of high school, I decided to go into the Air Force. I
Okay.
enlisted in the Air Force and spent my years in service there. But it was really in the Air Force that I began to understand that in the Air Force, in the military, there is a rank and file system where people are promoted based on their time in grade and their
Yes.
time in service, not necessarily on their ability to complete their job and do their job better than the guy or gal they're standing next to. What I had saw early on while in school, working in a grocery store and working in just the civilian sector of work, is that those people that worked hardest or that were the best at what they did were the people that got the promotions. And that was a distinct difference that I saw between the military and civilian workforce. And I decided to come home after my time in the Air Force, and I really wanted to go back into the grocery business and see if I couldn't give it a spin and take advantage of being able to work hard and move up the ladder, and was very successful, fortunately, at doing so.
You're right. And first of all, thank you for your service. I'm an Army veteran myself, and also I know exactly what you're saying. The military teaches you discipline,
Absolutely.
and how to take an order from somebody and carry out that order, because somebody's going to be watching to see if you accomplish the task, and if you did, then you get noticed. As you say, unfortunately, in the military, sometimes the way you advance is simply time in grade. After a year, you get an advancement, whatever. But in the real world, hard work very often pays off in advancements in a much different and often a faster way. Am I right?
100%. I mean, you said it very well. And without that discipline that I did learn in the military, I don't think I would have been as successful as I was. So I look at my time in the military as a real building block, if you will, to my time in the civilian workforce. I came back home. I tell people I was a grown man at that point. I knew how to take instruction. I knew what discipline looked like. I knew how it was to carry myself as a professional. And I used that when I went back into the grocery business to then help me advance forward.
It's interesting. When I was about 15 or 16 years old, I had thoughts of being a pharmacist. So my father reached out, to a good friend of his who was a pharmacist in the town I grew up in, and said, "Do you think you got an opportunity for my son?" And so I got a job sweeping floors and dusting bottles in the pharmacy. I wasn't really too thrilled about that, because I didn't do that well with all that dust. But, the one thing that I learned, and you probably did too, when restocking the shelves, you always put the items closest to expiration date up front and the new goods in the back. You rotate your stock. So, you're just shaking your head. So I'm preaching to the choir here. When I went into the military, and to this very day, I still rotate my socks, my underwear in my drawers. I'm still, first in, last out, whatever. So you learn. That's what the military helps you do. And if you are and my wife and I spent 45 years in the retail business. So in merchandising and displaying in our stores, we did the same things. If there was some slow moving items, you move those up to the front to try and get more eyes and all. So I'm sure that as you were moving up the ranks from a bagger, you were learning all of that merchandising, displaying, and all of that. And how soon was it that you were in a position where you had baggers under your charge that you were now working with to do the things that you did as you started to move up that ladder?
Yeah, so I began to take advantage of the corporate library. They had a library back then. This was before social media as we know it today.
Yes.
So we had an actual library, and we could rent books. They would mail the books to you, and you could read the book and take a test, and you would be awarded credits towards your company education. And I read a book that really talked about goal setting. And at that time, I decided to write down my goals, and my goals were very clear. It was, I wanted to be a store manager by the time I was 25, and I wanted to be a director at 35. And I wrote 5 steps out. And the last one was I wanted to be a CEO at the age of 65. And so at 25, I had made that first goal, and I began to manage my own store. And that's when I began, teaching and helping, young kids as they came into work from high school and really folks of all ages in the grocery store. So it was probably about the age of 25 that I really began to lead people in the grocery business.
Did you find that it was easier for you to relate with these new hires and people just starting out in the business by saying to them, I was once in your position, and so if you work hard, you can end up being in my office one day?
Yeah, boy, yeah. If you had a nickel for every time you said that to some young kid, that, look, I've been there, I've been in your shoes, and well, how do I get to where you are? And I go, well, you just keep your head down, you work hard, you follow the rules, you keep your nose clean, and gosh, it's all the things that your parents say to you as you're growing up. When you think about it, you're really just being a mentor. Almost like another parent figure, if you will, when you're leading young kids that work for you. Now, don't get me wrong. I had a lot of folks that were a lot older than me, that had a lot more experience than me, that had to work for me also. So there's that bridge to gap there as well.
It's an interaction with other people. And again, that kind of falls back a little bit to the military discipline too, is because you were working with people older and younger and lesser rank and higher rank than you were, but you had to learn how to interact with all of them. And certainly in the live business world, and I use that word live, with an exclamation point, because we don't seem to be in that kind of a world these days, that live interaction with people. And maybe that's a good place for me to number one, remind the people that are watching and listening that if you want to learn a little bit more about Terry, he's written a book called From Bagger to Boardroom, which is a great title for a book. And you can go to his website, very simple, right there on the screen, terrystanleyspeaks.com. And there's a place where you can reach out if you've got questions and you want to interact with Terry. It's a fascinating story because I think that the number one thing that I get from this conversation is that you are the exception and not the rule, because you don't find as many people that start a career in one field and stay in that career their entire career. It's especially true with athletes. They are good athletes, but they have a time limit, their capability. But then what do they do after that? And the large corporations, to know that there is someone that is now their CEO and leading that corporation, who once was near at the starting ramp they know the system straight through. And so I'm sure that is what's given you the ability to speak to other groups about that too. My son was an executive with a tile and stone company for 25 years. He started out on a forklift in the warehouse, and little by little he just worked his way through the system too. And I applaud people that will do that, because it's tenacity that is a key word, to just get in there and keep on doing it. And so are you the CEO of the same company that you were a bagger with originally?
No, I made several changes along the way for different reasons, companies that were bought and sold, mergers,
Yes.
and the like. And most recently, my last 5 years, I joined an independent grocer here in Alabama. And the owner reached out to me and asked me straightforward, would you come run my company for me, and put us on, solid ground, help us build the future. When I joined Jerry, we had 9 stores. When I retired just recently, we had 16 stores. So we had tremendous growth, went from 350 employees to over 650 employees. So just a lot of fun building the business, putting it on strong footing. And again, leading a group, and it was tremendous fun. It was an outstanding fun.
Did you know the gentleman that hired you? Had you had any relationship through the years? Did he know your experience, and that's why he came to you and said, I want you to join me?
Yeah, he did. But we had friends in the industry that we both knew, that knew Jerry, that knew me. And Jerry, when he was openly looking for someone to take the reins, to be that CEO, he reached out to several people in the industry to say, do you know a guy? Do you know a gal? Do you know that right person? And several people indicated that they felt like I was the right guy. He called me and we had a discussion, and we had a handshake, and I came to Alabama and went to work.
So we're talking about, this is what, about 40 years into your career?
That's correct.
That exactly all this happened. So can you tell me and the people that are watching and listening, what kind of an inner feeling does Terry Stanley get when somebody says to them after 40 years that you are still of a great value and we want that value on our team?
It's tremendous. It's humbling. It really, you go, man, am I ready? Is this the right time? Is this the right move? You certainly ask yourself those questions, but then, I have confidence in myself, and I know my history. I know what I've brought to other organizations and what I've learned and what I feel like I can share. So yeah, it was a tremendous, just a tremendous feeling to know that, on the other end of the call was a guy going, I want to put all my trust and my company in your hands, and I want you to lead the charge. Very humbling and very rewarding.
Well, and also I would probably add to add the word unusual, because here you are well into your 50s at this time. And very often when somebody's in their 50s and they're getting a little bit closer to that retirement age, there's a lot of corporations that will say, this guy's overqualified, and we're only going to get a couple of years out of him, and then he's going to be gone and we're left back, at the starting block again. So,
Yeah. And actually, Stuart, I was 60. So, I mean, I was
yeah.
Like, this guy's taken a tremendous step, if you will. But when we discussed it, it was like, I want the years you have, Terry. I want you to come in, and we talked a lot about succession planning, which is so important in the organization. I knew coming in that, hey, I wasn't going to be here for 30 years. I wasn't going to work until I'm 90.
Right.
So I came in understanding that, look, I want to build a strong foundation. I want to bring people into the organization that's going to continue to build great things for this organization for many years to come. So succession planning right out of the gate was very important for me to make sure that I built an infrastructure that could live beyond Terry Stanley.
Yeah, and no doubt they saw that also, that you had the ability to interact with people and to groom that next echelon of people to move up through the company. And do you think that that is something that's missing at the corporate level of America today?
I don't know that missing, Stuart, is the right word as much as lacking. I think it just lacks the conversation in a lot of organizations, and a lot of organizations talk about succession planning, but the plan is to just go out on the street and hire a person when we feel like we need the person, as opposed to developing and really spending the time with actual succession planning and looking within the four walls at, who do we have in this organization that we can groom? I think a word you used earlier. I think grooming talent, grooming people to be your replacement. There's certainly a time and a place to go outside of the organization always, but even then, doing it early enough that you can bring someone in and really give them the time to develop them into the role.
I see shades of my youth, because I went into the family business with my parents, and we grew up in the shoe business, and my father used to hire shoe salesmen, and for the most part, there's an awful lot of people that have sold shoes for a brief amount of time. They sell shoes for a little bit until they find something else, and then they move on. And my father used to hire, interview people, and they would ask him, what's the vacation policy? I really don't want to work nights and weekends. And they asked about all of that. I remember my dad, one of the gentlemen that was with us for probably 25 years or more, when my dad talked with him, he said, "I'll tell you what, Mr. Sax, put a shoehorn in my hand and put me out on the floor for 2 weeks, and I'll show you what I can do. And if you like it, you hire me. And if not, I'll move on." My dad said, that's the kind of employee that you want, is the person that says, give me the chance, let me show you what I can do. And obviously that's what Terry Stanley did when he was 15 years old, and continued to do it. And so that obviously is something that you and your HR departments are always looking for, is that next group of people that say, I want to show you what I can do. I want to work my way up through your organization.
Every day, every minute of every day, every chance we get, we talk about looking for that kid with that little sparkle in their eye that you can just tell that, man, they get it. They want it. They're always asking, what next, boss? What can I do? What else is out there for me? You see that spark, and you just want to grab that kid and just give them all that you can to help them start advancing into different roles, because kids that show up today, they no desire to really want to succeed. Unfortunately, they don't know at a young age what they want to do. It's not necessarily their fault, but then you get those occasional kids that walk in and you just know this kid has got a little fire in their gut, and I want to take that fire and do something with it, for sure.
Having grown up in a city back in Indiana and all, in a local family owned and operated grocery business, I grew up seeing those small 2-3 location grocers then get absorbed by another local grocer, and then became regionalized. Some of the big names that we even know today were big in the Northeast, or they were big in the Midwest or the South and all. Well, now it seems that not only a lot of them have been absorbed under one, banner, but you also have your really big box stores like the Walmarts and the Costcos and all that are in that business too. How has, the focus and the ability of a grocery chain like you have been a part of, what is the advantage that they have competing against those big box retailers?
Yeah, so the advantages are there are several major advantages in my mind. One is, and I can speak to my own stores, customer service. So we did not have self-checkout in any of our locations. We still have cashiers that are going to check you out, hopefully with a smile and a conversation, and make sure that you ask how you're doing today. You're not going to have to come in and check yourself out. All of our meat cut fresh daily by real butchers in the butcher shop. We don't get any meat in that's pre-cut out of a factory.
Excellent. Yeah.
Local produce, local meat. Those are the things that separate an independent today from the large chains. And I think they're just critical to be a part of the community. So it's been a very special time for me to be a part of that, independent grocery community. It's been very special, a great way to close out a long career.
And I am that way. I do go to grocery stores that do have an option of either checkout people or self-check. My wife, she finds the self-check to be easy. I go to Rosie, who's my cashier that takes good care of me. I enjoy seeing her and saying, "Oh, Rosie, you just got a haircut," and she's so thrilled that somebody noticed. And you mentioned the butcher. I've been going to a guy named Vincent for the last 5 years, and Vincent will tell me, I'll tell you what, I got some fresher tilapia in the freezer. Let me go get you some fresh fish. That makes me as a consumer feel good. However, I am old school. How does that relate to the new generation who, some of them have never even stepped foot into a grocery store because they go online and order everything to be delivered. So what do the grocers like yourself do to attract that new younger audience to come into the store and take advantage of the services that you have to offer?
And that's a super question, and it is really a difficult challenge for us at this time, because you're living in a social media world where people are coming in, they're looking at their phones more than they're looking at anything else. They're oftentimes talking to someone, earbuds in. They don't want interaction. So we have to be really good at what we do. You have to be good at those things that you offer so that people don't feel like they're being held up. They don't feel like they're being, put out because you don't have self-checkout so the challenges are great. They really are. I mean, the independent today is fighting tooth and nail with the big boxes to stay relevant. And it is a very challenging time, especially in light of social media. But we have to look at things like, Facebook and Instagram and other ways to make sure that we're relevant.
Yeah. Truer words couldn't be spoken, because the area where I am, I mean, there is every brand of grocer here. I can never figure out how all of them can survive, because there's a grocery store probably every half mile on every major corner of every intersection, and they're all competing for the same people. And again, what we were talking about with this online ordering, I don't know whether today's generation realizes that grocery store has an overhead to maintain. They got to pay for the lights and the air conditioning to be on for, 12 hours a day, sometimes 24 hours a day. And so if people aren't shopping in the store and only shopping online, that's causing the bottom line to shrink a little bit. And so that's, I always have and always will encourage the people that watch and follow my show to shop locally. Get to know your local grocers, the people in the meat department, in the deli department. You have a special occasion coming up and you go over to the bakery and you talk to Francine in the bakery and you say, my grandson's graduating from high school and I want to do a really special cake. And Francine says to you, Mr. Sax, I'll take care of it for you. And boy, that's a good feeling both ways, because Francine says, I'm going to do something special for this regular customer of mine. And you feel good because you're going to get something that maybe is a little bit out of the envelope from Francine. Am I right?
Yeah, and that's certainly the hope. You want to be so good at doing some things that's the differentiator between you and the big box, that it is personalized. And when I talk about customer service, I mean, do our customers come in and feel special? Do they feel like they're getting something extra from us that they wouldn't get? They get full service instead of having to check themselves out. They have that bakery attendant that's going to go the extra step and make a cake for them that's going to knock their socks off, as opposed to getting a pre-bought cake someone writes happy birthday on or whatever. Right. Again, it really puts the charge on us to be really, really good at customer service, because that is the differentiator, because the big box can do it cheaper. They can probably do it faster, but that doesn't mean they can do it better. And that's where we have to over deliver.
I want your opinion on something else. We talked a little bit about the option of either going through a checkout lane with a cashier and all, or self-check. In your experience, has the onset of this self-check added to the shrinkage percentages over the years too?
Dramatically. And I will tell you, from some of the companies that I worked at before coming to Fresh Value, they are seeing shrink numbers that are astronomically high, as opposed to those stores that have only full service. And I can tell you that it's very well documented right now. There are several big chains, big companies across the country and even in Europe that are going back in and taking self-check out, because the bottom line has been affected so poorly in some locations that you just can't continue to allow the customer to check themselves out. The cost is just too high. Yeah,
it was always something in the back of my mind, because even when we were in the retail business, it got to the point where what money you were trying to save on your shrinkage, you would end up spending on these security companies that would come out and sell you these tags to put on every garment in the store, which looked terrible and all, but you had to do it to avoid the stuff walking out the door.
Yeah, it is it's a two-headed animal, and you're trying to save on one side.
It is a double-edged sword. You want to try and do everything you can for your customers, and then the customer turns around and finds a way of going around the system. And at the end of the day, when it hurts your bottom line, you say, what can we do to correct this? Have you also seen over the years an increase, or and your chain may be different from the big chains, employee turnover? You spend so many hours training somebody to do a job, and then 6 months or a year later, they say, I'm giving my notice because I'm going, to sell cars or something instead of bagging groceries. Do you find that in your circumstance, where you are more of an independent family operation, that your turnover is decreased?
I will tell you, Stuart, it's a great question, because turnover probably is the biggest challenge retailers have, period, whether you're
All
selling
retailers,
shoes
yeah.
or groceries. And people don't always leave for better opportunity. They often leave because they're not treated well, or there's issues, or they're not communicated to, or poor leadership, poor management. So it's incumbent upon us, or as a retailer, to provide a great place to work where people feel a part of it, where they're well trained, where they feel like they're taken care of, because that's the way you control turnover. There's always going to be the kid or the person that gets an offer that they just can't walk away from. When I got this offer to come here, I walked away from a great company. But I looked at them and said, look, understand, you did nothing wrong. It's just an opportunity I can't turn down. Those types of turnover happen. What you try to avoid is the turnover that you create. It's when your people within the building aren't taking care of their business, and you're losing good help, because of poor leadership.
I am so glad to hear you say that, Terry, because having been somebody that spent their career in retail, when I go into a store and there's some young person, sitting behind the counter, may I help you? And I say, I'm just looking around. Okay, if you need anything, let me know. I don't fault that person sitting on the stool behind the cash register. I fault the management because they didn't train that person to interact with the customer. And my dad always said the customer isn't the main reason that you have your job. It's the only reason you have your job is the customer first. And even if it's just small talk, where we used to say to our people that came in, if they were just looking, where are you visiting from? Are you local from the neighborhood? And you get into a conversation and you turn a stranger into a better friend, and it's easier to interact with them. So it is very, very much today the opportunity for management to make sure that they reduce their turnover by having qualified, you find this in the food industry. There are fast food places that, I only go to in a pinch, but there are others, and I'll throw Chick-fil-A out there as a good example. Boy, do they train their people. Right. Their people have got personality plus, and that makes you want to come back too. So I think, again, this, I know this, and it's the people that are watching and listening to the show to, tell them we urge you to find those places that take good care of their customers, reach out, support them, and tell them when they're doing a good job, make them feel good, and when you have an opportunity to walk over to the manager and say, Rosie over there is just a crackerjack at the cash register. I really love her. You got a great employee there. Congratulations. That, we're missing that part of the retail experience too, is by letting management know when they do a good job as well as when they do a poor job.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, it's just so important that those kids feel connected to your customer. The customer appreciates it in a way that, they pay you back by coming back and by being a regular. And you're right. The customer is way more likely to tell you someone did something wrong than that someone did something especially right. But it is nice as a retailer to hear it. But turnover is just such a huge part of our business, and one that we just have to focus on every second of every day.
Yeah. Well, again, you are a credit to your industry to be able to look back on it after all these years and say, I'm that shining example of the kid who said, just give me a job and let me start bagging groceries for the people, and then ultimately you end up being the CEO of a corporation in that field. And I also applaud you for now. You are retired now.
I am retired from the retail side, but I still like to help from a consulting side, if at all possible.
Yeah. So, and that's on the website. Also visit it, folks, because Terry does consulting and also interacts with other people, and he's available to speak to groups and all about what he does and his visions for the career and the business that he has been in. Well, Terry, thank you very, very much for taking the time. I do this, this show for the benefit of the people that are watching and listening. And I end my show with Oscar Wilde every episode. Be yourself, because everyone else is already taken. And it's good words to live by. I think it's what Terry Stanley stands for. So go out and make it a great day. Thanks for joining us on Someone You Should Know. And again, a real big thank you and congratulations to Terry Stanley on a great career. Thanks, Terry.
Thank you, Stuart. And I wish all of you the best of day. Thank you.
Someone You Should Know.